hot, I'm sweaty, I just got home and I'm putting everything away, and I figured that I would do a kind of a gear unpacking video. And then I also made some notes of things that I'd wish that I would have brought up. But this will be a good reminder for me of my trip coming up in a couple of weeks of what I can leave behind if I didn't use this particular item. So, Utah Solo Hunt Pack Dump. Let's start with the stuff that I left in the truck. So I brought the Reinhardt 18-in-1, obviously to shoot out and test and everything when I got to the site to make sure that going from 600 feet elevation to 10,000 feet was okay. I've got a backup white fuel for the stove. I brought my Hamskea third axis level. Brought a backup string. This is the string that comes stock on the VXR. I also brought some backup D-loop and some serving material. Brought a serving tool, a couple of Allen wrenches, backup food, and this was, I wish I would have brought that up the mountain. More to come on that. I brought some tape for your feet. That stuff's supposed to be like legit. I didn't actually have to use it, but apparently it gets on your skin and does not come off. Bought some Imodium. This is the drone, the controller, and an extra battery. Brought some food. Probably could have done better than that, but you know. And then inside this Pelican case is a Bowmatic. So it's kind of like a mobile bow press. They're pretty tough to work. And then I also packed some of my, I'm shooting the Iron Will solids, so I packed a couple of those in there. And then I actually brought an extra sleeping bag to put inside of the truck, again, just in case something happens and I had to leave my rig up at the top of the hill. I would have an extra sleeping bag in the truck, and then also the Engage limbs. The Engage limbs for the Matthews are expensive, but it is awesome. So that's all stuff that I think last year I would have tried to bring a fair amount of this up the hill, but I left it in the truck knowing if there was an emergency, I could always come back down and grab it. So that's stuff that was left in the truck. So we're just going to kind of go through some of the random stuff that I have. Not random, the wet wipes, and then underneath that is toilet paper. And I 100% recommend wet wipe first, toilet paper second. Wet wipe first, toilet paper second. I've got some diaper rash cream, which I did not have to use just in case I got really chafed. Earplugs, which if you're by yourself backcountry, earplugs make a huge difference at night. I figure if a bear is going to bite me, I will probably know it. I don't need to hear him coming. Sterapen for water filtration. This is year 2 where it has actually failed on me, although I would say in year 1, the fact that I didn't have the right batteries was my fault. Year 2, I reloaded with new batteries when I was at a gas station on the way out there. They may have been sitting on the shelf forever, but I will not take the Sterapen back out. Love the idea. I need something that is actually going to work and not have failed twice in a row. My backup was the Sawyer straw, which thank goodness I had it. I actually had a different version of it. It was the newer, updated version. Where did you go? Well, they make a newer, updated version with a mouthpiece that's more like a water bottle, and it's awesome because it flows more freely. I've got a headlamp. This was my backup headlamp. It's one of the cheap kind of diamond ones. I'll show you a different one when I get to my actual pack that I was carrying around. 2 pieces of paracord. The first one that you see unbundled is what I use to hang my food. The second was in case I got an animal. Got some ratchets, little kind of small zip ties. That footprint I was going to use as a tarp in case it rained really hard. It did not. Inside this bag was 4 plastic bags, like the big black trash bags that I was going to use to sink the meat at the bottom of the hill, just in case it was too hot and I didn't have a place to put it. I was going to put it in the black bags and then sink it at the lake at the bottom of the hill. I've got that's my bag cover, like my waterproof bag cover. I've got a little trash bag. This is my safety stuff. I've got a trauma pack just in case somebody gets shot or gets stabbed with an arrow in a real bad spot. That's what that trauma kit will take care of. First aid kit with a whole bunch of crap in there that I probably don't need, and I probably need to update that. I've got a hairnet, not a hairnet, like a head net where bugs can, it'll kind of prevent bugs from getting into your face, and that is awesome. It's so small, I highly recommend that one. I've got an emergency blanket. In my kill kit, I've got 4 game bags, and then I've got 5 total game bags. I've got that. That's my knife there. That's the new Iron Will. I didn't get to use it this last time, but it seems pretty awesome. And then I've got some emergency flint and steel and matches. Anchor battery pack so that I could charge my phone, which was awesome every night. I would definitely recommend that, especially if you're using something like Onyx. It's heavy, but it's worth it. Platypus bladder, folds up nicely, and then Nalgene bottle. I like the Nalgene bottle because I can drink fast, and that was the whole point of the Sterapen, is I could knock a liter out really quick. Unfortunately, the Sterapen wouldn't work for me, and that, you can see I've wrapped duct tape around the actual bottle so that I can use the duct tape in case I need it for anything. I'm just going to roll through a couple of other things. I ended up going with the Crispy Colorados this year. I bought them a couple of weeks prior to the season, and I was ready to wear my old boots, which were also a Crispy. They were the Thor GTX. But the Colorados, I bought a half size bigger than the Thors, and they were great. Really enjoyed them. They didn't really require any break-in time at all. I went out with them. I bet I put 20 miles on them before I actually went to the mountains, but no issues with my feet at all the entire time I was up there. Big fan of the Crispies. Let's talk about food. So the way I configured my food was I have this big roll-down bag here, and then I counted my calories for each individual day, and my goal was to take 2,500 calories. And I packed it into each day into like a 2-gallon Ziploc bag. So I would literally just come in here at the beginning of the day, walk over to where I had it hanging in the tree, lower it down, pull my one bag out for the day, and then go eat on it all day long, putting the trash back in that Ziploc, roll that Ziploc back up at the end of the day, shove it back in here. So as the trip is progressing, this is becoming less food and more trash. So I'm a fan of the roll top bags for being able to store it when you're in camp, because you pretty much just roll this thing down a couple, clip it, and then you throw your paracord up over a tree. You can then hoist this up, and it seems to do a pretty good job. I've used this a few times, never had any issues with bears. That said, it's obviously not bear proof, but I'm not bringing a giant bear proof case up there with it either. But I assume that based on the fact that this holds air, that it's going to do a decent job of holding in smell. Again, I know bears can smell like crazy. Jet boil is what I ended up bringing up, and then a titanium Sea to Summit spoon. You just want to make sure that the spoon is deep enough that you can reach into an actual dehydrated, food pouch container. So if you bring a little short spoon, you're going to kind of get it all over your hands. So having something longer makes a lot of sense. For the dehydrated food, I brought the Peak Refuel, and I like that in general a lot. So I've tried quite a few different, different kind of samplings of what they offer. And overall, I would say probably 6 out of 7 I'm a big fan of. Just, they do a better job of keeping the food a little bit more neutral. Like it tastes like actual real food. The scrambled egg that they have, it's got some like onions and peppers and stuff like that in it. That's probably one of my favorites. It's just like a huge hit of protein. The chicken Alfredo, and then they make a pork with rice. Really big fan of that. I ordered a couple of other ones that didn't come before the trip from Peak Refuel, so they may be running behind because of the COVID stuff right now, so just give them a little bit more time if you're going to order. I tend to stay as neutral as I can, and I'm a big fan of like the pasta and rice stuff. That seems to really hit the spot when I'm ready to just kind of sit down and have something warm at the end of the night. Other than that, it was a lot of like calorie dense food. Somebody said that basically for every ounce of food, you want it to have at least 100 calories, which is actually surprisingly hard to do. I ended up with probably a lot more of like a carbohydrate heavy diet during the week, a lot less protein and fat, which is kind of what I'm used to. And I haven't nailed down exactly what I want to take with me on camping food. I'm still kind of working on it. But Bobo bars were one of the things that I really enjoyed. Honey stingers. The honey stingers were always something that I looked forward to. And they were kind of fun because in the morning they'd be like real hard and frozen, but as the day went by they'd get real flimsy and flappy, so they were good. I brought some peanut butter filled pretzels, and those were really nice because I think I just think the combination, I always ate those every single day. Some of the stuff that I did not end up eating, I brought dehydrated apricots and apples. Couldn't do it. I did a little bit, like forcing myself, but I just couldn't do it. I don't eat that stuff normally. like that kind of thing. I like fruits and vegetables fine, but just, I don't know, reminded me of being with my grandma when I was a kid. Yeah, you should eat this, it's good for you. You know, that kind of thing. My grandma's from Arkansas. I don't know why I made her sound like she's from Brooklyn. The jet boil, I'm a fan of. I know that, like, if you're going to go try to melt snow, this is not a good alternative. And I know they make deeper ones, but again, this is the Mini Mo. I like this one. I've had it for a couple of years, never had any issues with it at all. The fuel canister and the kind of igniter section go in here together, and then it's got these legs that come off, and you put them to the bottom of the canister. And I literally left the thing set up at my campsite the entire time. So if I wanted to throw, you know, something quick in there, some coffee or whatever, I could just fire it up. And it's, like I said, the deep spoon. So let's move over to kind of tent / sleep system. For a sleeping pad, I've got this REI Flash insulated air pad. It says the R value is 3.7. It's a 2-inch thick pad. I've had this for a couple of years as well. I'm a big dude, never popped it. I mean, I don't do like an amazing job of raking off the ground, and this thing seems like it's pretty dang tough. It fits your shoulders, and then it gets narrower at your feet. I think it's more designed for like a mummy bag style. But I'm a fan. This thing will really save your butt if you're out there sleeping on the ground. If you're just sleeping directly on the ground, it will sap the heat out of you like crazy. Tent-wise, I've got the Big Agnes Copper Spur. I did a lot of research on the tent beforehand, and a lot of people basically said that this is a good kind of middle-of-the-road tent. It's a little expensive, probably for what it is. It's a 2-man tent, which I'm never not going to have a 2-man tent. Like, it's crazy to me that they call it a 2-man. I wake up, I'm diagonal in there, got all my crap everywhere. It's got 2 vestibules that come out from the sides, so that, like, say it's raining, I can just shove everything, under those vestibules and keep everything dry pretty quickly and easily. To me, this is a really solid value tent, I think. It's good and lightweight. I put it in this bigger stuff sack, and then I can actually shove my sleeping bag in here with all the poles and everything that build the tent, and then I hang this underneath my pack. So let's move over to the sleeping bag. Sleeping bag is an REI Magma. Yeah, Magma 15 degree. It's a down sleeping bag, and obviously I know the danger of down is if it gets wet, you've lost all your insulation. That said, I knew that it wasn't going to be raining the day that I went in, got everything in the tent, never had any issues with it. It's a great bag. I would say that comfortably you're going to get down to 32 degrees-ish. If you get much lower than that, it says 15, and I think it means 15 will keep you alive. But 32-ish, I woke up one morning and there was frost, and I remember thinking those last couple hours, like, I'm almost cold. Almost. So keep that in mind. They do make a 0-degree version of this, and I've also got a liner, like an insulated liner that's supposed to get me down a little bit farther. I was sleeping in merino wool kind of long johns, like an upper and a lower from Sitka. No socks though, the whole week, no socks. And I was great. It's like I said, it was getting down into the 30s at night. I would say on average it was between 32 and 37 probably at night. So big fan of the bag. I haven't had a lot of sleeping bags, so there may be other alternatives that are better, but it's like I said, I'm a fan. One of the things that's kind of a little extra that it made a huge difference, this Thermarest Trekker chair. This is one of those things that's kind of an extra, but it packs up really tight, and I can actually fit it in with the sleeping bag and the poles and all that stuff. So it doesn't really feel like it takes up that much extra room. It's this little chair that it doesn't have legs, but what it does is you basically sit in it like so, and then you sit down on the ground, and these straps are kind of wrapping around you here, and it supports your back, it supports your legs, and you can actually take this sleeping pad, inflate it a little bit, and then fold it up into the chair and actually have something kind of soft and cushy, but I use it without that. I just wanted something that was gonna support my back a little bit and my legs, where I'm not having to lean up against a rock or a log. And so this little dude here, I'm a fan of. I've had it a couple of years. It seems to be holding up really well. Again, that's the Thermarest Trekker Chair Kit 20. For a pillow, I've got this Sea to Summit pillow. Packs down really, really tight. You blow it up, it's just a couple of breaths. And I like doing this way more than I like just sleeping on like a bundle of clothes. Again, this is so tiny, you can pretty much shove it anywhere, and it's great. Again, super durable, never had any issues with it. I'll fold it up if I'm trying to read or something like that, deflate it just a hair and move it around. I've had it for a couple of years, never had any issues with it either. That's pretty much it with sleep system. Let's move over to kind of camera gear / miscellaneous stuff. So as far as camera gear goes, this is the Canon RF mount 70-200. It's an awesome lens. It's a squatty little dude for a 70-200, but it's still freaking heavy. This is the lens cover for it, like the lens hood. This is a little, I was trying to be a little bit safe with this. I was worried about it breaking. Got some headphones. I've got some cleaning cloths, and then these are kind of cool. This is like a, it's called Tech Wrap. It's kind of like a bandana, but then it's got this piece of elastic on it that I was wrapping around the lenses and hunkering down to just kind of keep them from getting scratched. Another thing that I've found that's cool on these lenses is these are the Polar Pro lens caps. It's like a rubbery, kind of like it slides completely over the outside of the lens, and those do a really good job. Like I'll literally set the camera face down on this when I want to, when I want to walk away, if I'm worried about setting it on a rock or whatever. Big fan of those Polar Pro caps. I've got GoPro with 6 replacement batteries in here. The GoPros just eat batteries alive. And honestly, I'm not a huge fan of the GoPro. Like, I think that it's a functional camera from literally me to you, but if you're trying to do anything as far as like mounting it on a bow or mounting it over your shoulder to kind of view out, which is what I was doing, not a good alternative. Honestly, I'll make a video on my camera equipment, but I'm not a huge fan of everything that I've bought for doing solo hunts. It's too heavy and it requires too much interaction in order to make it work in an easy way. Like it's just, yeah, I'll make a video on that though. Extra paracord. So I ended up bringing 2 things of unopened paracord, and that was because I had it in different pockets and I didn't realize that I'd brought it. So I will only bring 1 of these in the future. That was stupid. This is an SD card case. So I've got extra SD cards to make sure that, in case I run out of space. This was a little tripod for my phone, which I never ended up using. Here's the GoPro here. And this is actually mounted to it's like a selfie stick. The cool part about this was if I wanted a shot of me like walking across the water, I could, extend it out. And if I wanted to do the shot that I was talking about over the shoulder, mounting it in my bag, I could do that as well. But like I said, I don't recommend it. And like I said, I apologize for the lighting because I know this is terrible. I've got this Litra illumination cube. This thing is it's pretty cool. It's a real soft light that it emanates. It's kind of heavy. I probably won't bring this again. I didn't end up needing it. And then I don't know why this ended up over here, but I've got my, probably because it's got this mount. This mounts to a tripod, and then you can actually screw your binoculars into this. So if you're going to spend a long time glassing, you literally have your binoculars mounted on top of the camera tripod. And so yeah, this is Vortex makes this. All the major binocular brands are going to have one, but you just mount it on top of a typical kind of camera clamp mount. 4 extra batteries, and I did end up running through all the batteries, and I basically just had clean new batteries in 1 pouch, and then I knew when I moved them down to my belt pouch that they were used and done. So I want to get a better system for that, something that holds the batteries individual where I can flip them, basically put a green mark on one side and red on the other, and as I rotate them from green to red, I know that they're done. So that was camera equipment, and then I've got a mic on this camera, the actual Canon EOS R. This is the RF 15-35, and then I've got a Peak design tripod, and I'll kind of show you guys as I'll do some B-roll of those. I'm a big fan of all this setup for doing YouTube videos and stuff like that. It looks beautiful. It takes amazing pictures. Almost impossible to man by yourself. Impossible to man if you're actually trying to move and do any like spot and stalking stuff. Not happening. Not happening. You got to do it while you're sitting. I don't know how I missed this, but this is a tent slash pad repair kit. Don't anticipate ever having to use this, but obviously if you get a hole in your tent or in your sleeping pad, that would be a big thing. Nice to have. Very light. Let's go through my Bino harness. I'm using the new Sitka. It's this kind of three chambered dude here. I'll be honest. This seems like a prototype. It seems like they got it 80% of the way there, gave it to all their guys in the field, and they were like, let us know what you think. And then everyone was like, we're just going to make it. Like, it literally is, it's close to being something really awesome. Things I don't like about it, the straps are really narrow, and they're kind of, it's kind of becomes a little chaos. Like, I figured out a way to kind of take it off and hang it and then put it back on. The other issue that I had is these side pockets, not the side pockets, all the pockets, they're loud. Like this is not doing it justice. Where I was running into issues was I'd have my cow call around my neck, and then I'd lean forward to move, and then it would come back and it would bounce off of one of these, and it literally sounded like a drum. Boom. Like this kind of light thuddy thing. The side pouches, they open from the back with a little thing here, but they don't actually close over the lip of the pouch. Like, unless you really kind of make it work. I don't know. It's like I said, it seems like it's close, and maybe next year's will be better, but for 150 bucks, I'd probably go buy something else, to be honest. But let's go through this. This is what I've got here. Vortex 10x42. I know that I was hunting in thick stuff, so I didn't bring a 15 power binocular. I didn't bring a spotting scope. I've just had my 10x42s. I think that I'm probably going to look into something in a 15 power in either a Swarovski or maybe the Mavens. I'd like to try the Mavens. I haven't tried them yet. So I've got those locked in so that, you know, if everything's open and they fall out, it's not going to drop on the ground. I've got a lens cleaner in here to clean those up. In the back, there's like this back flap back here, and I put my tag in there just so I had that on me at all times. Rangefinder over on this side. I'm using the Leupold RX full draw. This has been good. Like, I think this is a solid one. I got this a couple of years ago at a TAC event, and I like it. I think for the price, it's a good one. I know that Leupold just came out with another one where you can incorporate basically you can incorporate all your information, including your like draw weight, the arrow that you're using, and all that, so that it's going to be super accurate based on your actual setup. This is just going to get you pretty close, so keep that in mind. But I think this is probably going to be about half the price. Overall, though, I'm a fan of that rangefinder. It works really well in low light. I've got my wind check over on this side. Very important, wind check. I kept my chapstick in this front pocket over here, an SPF 30. That stuff, man, when you're at elevation, I don't wear chapstick normally, but holy crap, that'll save your butt. Over in this pouch, I've got a Phelps cow call. I feel like this is really loud, and because I was using the SPF, you know, it kind of got a little gummy, but I got my release over in this other pocket here. I carried the Stan Perfex. I've got it set at kind of I'd say it's a medium as far as the hardness goes, because I wanted, just in case I wanted to really mash that trigger down, that it would actually go. I was really impressed with this. I bought one of these Petzl headlamps. This is really cool. This thing tucks in like this is all it is, but then it's got this little magnet on the back. Well, I guess it's not a magnet. It's a pad for your head, and it stretches out like that, and that's how you put it on. Like, pretty easy, and it gets real tight and compact. And I think it said on the lowest setting the battery will last 200 hours. Maybe it was 60. It's either 200 or 60. Change the battery before you go out anyway. It's 3 AAA batteries. Big fan of this, and it wasn't that expensive, so it gets really good reviews on Amazon. And then I have my Garmin InReach Mini. I never turned it on. I would like to get it set so I could send text to my parents and to Jocelyn, just so everybody knows that I'm obviously alive and doing well, but I didn't do that ahead of time. I was basically just keeping this as an SOS, and I always Didn't matter what I did. If I was sleeping, I had this next to me and my gun. If I was going to pee, I picked this up and my gun. If I was going to get the food, this and my gun. This lived on me as well as the gun the entire time I was there. I never felt unsafe. I never saw a bear, never any issues. That said, better safe than sorry. If something happens and my pack gets drug off or my Bino harness gets drug off, I don't want the InReach Mini to be attached to the, to that. So that's it for Bino harness. It's like I said, overall the Sitka is, I think they're on a better track, but it's not there for 150 bucks. Trekking poles, these are fine. They didn't break. I'm not too hard on them. I don't train with trekking poles. I actually train with just the backpack, so that when I pick up trekking poles, all of a sudden it feels like everything's considerably lighter. The total pack ended up being about 65 pounds with my bow and all the camera gear and everything inside of it. And 65 is right on, that's as heavy as I want to go, especially coming from 600 feet elevation up to, I think when I started out I was in 9s, and then getting up into the mid 10s, 11, at the end of the trail. So trekking poles were cool. These are lightweight. They're just something that I got off Amazon. These are Foxelli outdoor gear. They held up great. It's like I said, I haven't used them really a lot long term, but at Amazon they came highly recommended and they were relatively cheap. I think they were 50 or 60 bucks. So they're not, $150 pair of trekking poles. So let's get into the bow and arrow setup. I packed everything as far as the accessories go. I packed them into this individual little bag. This is an Eagle Creek. It's just something that I bought at Bass Pro, but basically I wanted to keep everything separate from the actual bow. I put nothing in here that can rattle around. So like my tight spot quiver and all that stuff lived outside of this, including the broadhead case. Nothing lived in here except the arrows that are tightly set back here, and then the bow down here. So when I got to the site, I pulled out the Sitka kind of arrow, the bow sling, and I did that just to protect it on the way in because the bow was actually strapped to the back of the pack. So I like this. This is not something that I feel like you're going to use that often, but it's a good thing to have. Quiver that I'm running is the tight spot quiver. This has some major advantages and it has some huge drawbacks. It does not hold arrows terribly well, and I know that they make an extra kind of an extra holding device that you put at the top. If you're going to buy this quiver, buy that right off the bat. I did not, and it was like, especially if you end up with an arrow that you've lost the broadhead, like you've shot it into an animal, or you've missed and you've hit a tree and you have to unscrew it and leave the broadhead. There's no way for you to really keep that arrow quiet within the quiver. It's going to just kind of jitter around because there's only one real holding spot down here. So I like the tight spot for the fact that it keeps everything really close to the bow, and it protects that hamski, limb-driven cord that comes off of it. But there are some major drawbacks to this. I used the Day 6 arrows, and then the system out front was the Day 6 system that they use, which is kind of that half out, and then the sleeve that kind of goes back over the arrow. I've really enjoyed these arrows so far. They're at 615 grains, so it's pretty heavy. And then I was using the Iron Will solid 125s out front. So it's a pretty heavy arrow setup. And then as far as nocks go, I'm using the Fire Nocks. Jury's still out on those. That's another product where I feel like the idea is really good, but they're a little bit weird to install, just a little bit. And if you don't do it pretty well perfectly, you're going to leave, you know what, I'm going to do a review on those when we get to the arrows. And again, I'll talk about the Fire Nocks and the drawbacks. I've got my 15-inch cutter stabilizer for the front. And then because I didn't buy a shorter back, I ended up using one of the ramrods for the rear, and I kept my weight pretty heavy, to be honest. I mean, I kept the weight pretty heavy overall when I was walking around. And when you're walking with your bow in your hand and you're carrying it by the string, or you're carrying it by the cables, or whatever, it sucks no matter what. Like, it just does. So a few extra ounces for me to feel confident when I actually draw on an animal, I'll leave them on there. I brought a backup release. This was the Stand Shoot Off TL. I don't like this as a hunting release. It's kind of difficult to get clipped on the loop, but I knew as a backup this was going to work for me fine. This is the heavy, so I shoot this release really well, so I'm confident in this, even though it's not a great hunting release. And then I brought you know, an Allen wrench set as kind of a backup, and then this is the SKB case here. I had to modify the case slightly by cutting out foam on one side, but I got a super good deal on it because they basically made it only good for like a kid's bow, essentially, when they built this case. It's like super small, but I'm a fan of the case. So that's the bow stuff. So let's talk about the clothes that I brought in. The first day I got to the mountain, I knew that it was going to be kind of middle of the day, like I think it was like 10 o'clock, but I knew the hike in was going to take me well into the middle of the day. So I brought these really lightweight shorts that I knew I probably wasn't going to wear again. These are something that I got from my brother-in-law, and they almost seem like they're made of like some kind of Cordura. They seem real durable, but I mean, there's just nothing to these, super light. And then I wore darn tough socks, kind of a shorter sock for the hike in, just so I could stay cool, because I knew it was going to be hot in the middle of the day there. Next, and this is kind of what I primarily lived in, were the Sitka, I think these are the mountain pants. They've got knee pads. Get something with knee pads in them. They're awesome. Like, the knee pads make a huge difference, even just for like bending over and getting water when you're putting your knees on rocks. Huge difference. If you have to go on a crawl, get something with knee pads. I'm not a huge fan of the pocket configuration on these. They've got it's a zip-up pocket for both of your, you know, your kind of standard front pockets, whereas some of their pants have really cool little spots for knives. These, it's kind of awkward to get a knife in here, but I guess if you're worried, you know, if you're really crawling around like crazy, having something to zip up, you know, is a big deal. The other thing I don't like about Sitka clothes, they don't tell you what they are anywhere in here, like on the tags or anything. There's just no, like, I don't know what you are, so I don't know what to recommend to people. Sitka. Seems like an easy thing to change, though. Maybe they can start doing that. Knee pads, big deal. This is kind of a lightweight. There's no real insulation to these, and these are what I lived in the majority of the time. As far as shirts go, this is one of their very lightweight outer shirts. It's got the hood and the face mask. This was nice, not necessarily for elk, but for mosquitoes. That was a big deal. My hands were getting tore up, but if I put that thing up around my ears and then I put the face mask on, it was really limiting my exposure to the mosquitoes. They were still tearing up my shoulders and stuff like that, but yeah, this was a real nice shirt. And again, I lived in this the majority of the time as well. I've got a neck gaiter that I wore to walk into gas stations for the Corona. I didn't actually wear that on the hill. Their hat, they make kind of a nice little form-fitting hat that's really airy and lightweight. This is almost one of the only Sitka hats that I actually like the way they fit. It's a real nice, you know, kind of tight fit. The only thing that I don't like about this is at night when I would spin it around to use the headlamp, it's got this little tassel-y, toggly thing here that you kind of have to figure out what to do with it. And it's, you know, that's like the elastic wire kind of that goes around the bottom so that you can adjust the hat. But I do like this hat overall. For socks, I was wearing darn tough wool socks. For some reason, my body just does really well with wool. Like I've just found over time that merino wool base layers keep me really warm in the winter and provide a little bit of flexibility even in the summer. You know, if I feel like I get hot later in the day before I'm actually having to take everything off. So my underlayers were the Sitka. This is the heavyweight merino wool base layers, and this I bought in, I think it's their dark timber pattern. Obviously, it doesn't matter what pattern it is for an underlayer, but really big fan of this. It just seems like really good, high quality. It's super soft, and this is what I slept in at night. And then I have the equivalent in the pants. Underwear, I was wearing Sax underwear, S-A-X-X. The Sax have literally like a section that kind of separates the stuff from your thighs. So as you're walking, you can literally pull these things up, and it prevents rubbing. Like, you're basically just kind of rubbing on the actual material, which is one of the reasons that I didn't end up having to use any of the diaper rash cream at all. Sax, big fan, SAXX, and they seem to breathe pretty well. I did bring some merino wool boxers as well, but I didn't end up wearing those. And when I was out, I brought 2 pair of socks, 2 pair of boxers. So I literally wore 1 pair of boxers the whole week. Delicious. And then this is the Sitka. I can't remember if this is the Storm Front or the Thunder Cloud. This is another one, or if I could just look in here and tell you what the damn thing was, this would be real easy. But I do like this rain gear. I wore it once, and the truth is, rain gear is one of those things. It's tough because if you get rain, you're so glad that you had it. But if you didn't get rain, it's relatively bulky for what it is. Like, it's not super light. But that was another one that just came up to base camp with me, and then I would leave it there. And I had the forecast on my phone, knowing that, like, okay, Wednesday there's a chance of rain, so I'd stuff it in the pack and I'd go ahead and take it with me. Nighttime, it would get pretty cold. So nighttime and early morning when I would wake up, I've got this Kuiu, and I think it's a super down. It's not like an incredibly thick down. But man, this thing is warm and it crams down tiny. Like, I can literally wad this thing up to like the size of a softball. Really big fan of this jacket. I think for the value, the only issue is it's kind of loud, but I think for the value, this is a money coat right here. I also brought heavier weight Sitka gloves. These are nice because they've got kind of the leather fingertips. So I was able to like tie my shoes and do a few things that required a little bit more dexterity. And I also brought a Sitka beanie that I would wear in the morning after I got out of my tent. Honestly, all the clothes that I brought, I wore. So there's none of those things that I really could say that I could leave at home. Like, honestly, if I wouldn't have brought the down coat, I would have been freezing my butt off, or I would have had to have stayed. Later inside of the tent in the morning. So honestly, I had to bring all the clothes that I brought, unless I wanted to just be a little bit miserable or a little bit wet. So as the week was going on, when I'd think, oh man, I really could have used this, I would immediately make a note in my phone because I didn't want to forget. So let's go through some of those notes that I had made on my phone. Quiet bags for day food. For some reason, the like bulk food that I bought, that I broke out into individual pieces, like into little individual packets, I had forgotten the little Ziploc bags, and one girl said, oh, I've got some sandwich bags here, I'll just grab them for you. And they were the crinkliest little bastards. I'll never do that again, because there'd be times where I was like, all right, well, I mean, I'm sitting by this wallow, and I'm going to sit here all day. I'm sure not going to get this thing out and just... So definitely want to make sure that I've got Ziploc bags for everything that's individually packaged. And if there's any wrapping on anything that's going to be loud, take it off and repackage. Because it's like I said, there were days where I'd be sitting, not eating because I was worried about making noise. Check sun-up times and detailed weather. The first day that I was there, I realized I didn't know what time the sun came up. So I got up at 4 and it didn't come up until really 5:45. So that was stupid, something easy that I could figure out. Change your batteries. And I have an expletive in there, and I put all of them. Before every single hunt, and this was so stupid of me not to do this, I should have changed every bit of batteries that I had. Rangefinder, headlamps, if I'm going to bring that Sterapen, every single set of anything that you had that requires battery, just change the battery. It's not that hard to do, and it's not that expensive. And if you get back there and all of a sudden your rangefinder goes dead, it's a freaking tragedy. That is so easily prevented. And I'm a dumbass because, again, I went and bought probably decade-old batteries from this gas station that never sells AA batteries for some reason. So that was my fault. Change your batteries. Create a schedule with tasks and goals. We'll talk about that more. Emergency tablets for water. I think I just have PTSD from the first time I got back there and realized that water was going to be an issue. So I like the idea of bringing some iodine tablets, and so I'll buy some of those next. Sunscreen. I didn't bring sunscreen, and I ended up relying on that Sitka shirt that I showed you that has the hood and the face mask. I ended up relying on that for sunshade a fair amount, and I still got a little bit crispy, like especially on my hands. So sunscreen's a good thing. Nasal spray for sleeping with a clear nose. I noticed that my nose throughout the day would get more and more clogged, especially as I was getting dehydrated. So that's something I definitely wish I would have brought with some nasal spray, so that right before I went to bed, kind of clear that out. It's so dehydrating at night if you're laying there breathing through your mouth the entire time. You're going to dry your mouth out, and your body's going to wake you up probably every 30 minutes. So it's going to make sleeping obviously very difficult without being able to breathe through your nose. A butt pad. So I was thinking about this all the time that I spent walking and then sitting. What I'd like to do is have something thin, like a 1-inch piece of butt pad that I can just put down underneath. It'll keep my butt dry, and then just a little bit of protection against like roots and pine needles and stuff like that. I just feel like something kind of narrow might be something good for me to look into. Once the actual tent and the sleeping bag comes off the bottom, there are these hooks and straps and all sorts of stuff that seem like it'd be pretty easy to mount something there that would just kind of fold out and I could sit down on. Bino for gas. Food that doesn't make me fart like it's my job. Game cameras for wallows. So one thing, there was one wallow there that a guy had brought his game camera and set it up, and I thought that'd be nice. Instead, I went over to his game camera, brought my camera, opened it up, pulled his SD card, plugged it into my camera, checked the footage, put it back, didn't do anything bad, put it back, and noticed that he'd just set it up that morning, so there was no action yet. This is going to be a long video because it's a gear dump. The honest truth is, there's a few things in here that I don't need to bring again, but it's fairly minimal. Like, the honest truth is, I can probably do better on that first aid kit, but pretty much everything else in here, there may be a few little like camera things that I don't have to bring. Pretty much everything in here, like if I were to get an animal, I'm going to use everything in the kill kit that I didn't end up using. The sleep system, the camp system, all those types of things. I mean, I feel like I did a pretty decent job of nailing what I actually needed to bring, and I was still 65 pounds, which is a lot. I use the KUIU Icon Pro 5200. Yeah, they don't make that size anymore. They've gone smaller or they've gone bigger, but I did just order a Kifaru bag that's supposed to be here any day now. I recognize that the issues with basically when the KUIU bag gets over 50 pounds, it starts really weighting your shoulders, and it'll be really interesting to see. Kifaru is kind of known for not doing that. They're kind of known for keeping it lower on your hips. I'll be really interested to see if that actually does that. So yeah, this was the 2020 gear dump from Solo Elk Hunting in Utah. Didn't get an animal. I was in elk all day, every day, it felt like. I mean, some really decent opportunities, and honestly, I think if I was a more patient, better hunter, that I would have been able to execute, and I'm looking really forward to going to New Mexico in a couple of weeks and going with people that really know what they're doing and can teach me how to become a better elk hunter. I'll let you guys go. Thanks for watching. I'm Brandon McDonald.